Prasa's decision to ban preaching and informal trading on new trains have been met with mixed reaction. The SA Council of Churches, for one, saying that the agency didn't consult them before implementing these changes. It says commuters also need an explanation on why preaching on trains is now prohibited. For more on the story, we're joined this morning by Rev Mzwandile Molo, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the SA Council of Churches. Reverend, great to have you with us on the program this morning. Widespread reaction from some commuters. They were quoted in some of the newspapers that tracked the story from last week. But what's your reaction to this decision by Prasa?
Good morning, Michelle, and good morning to your viewers. Firstly, the South African Council of Churches really wants to start and frame this conversation by its appreciation of what Prasa is doing by reopening some of the routes that have been not functional for some time. And I think that's a very, very important thing, because many of our people are affected by the presence or absence of a commuter rail system that is reliable, safe, and secure. We, as the SACC, take the view that, firstly, we do not condemn in any way, shape, or form what Prasa is doing. We are seeking to say, let us have a conversation as a country and understand why certain decisions are taken. And key to this decision is our view that Prasa would not take such a decision unless it is informed by something that it believes is important enough for Prasa to make these rules. And we are therefore saying, we are clear in our mind that the trains are part of the extension of a public square and a public experience of our people. And part of that is living with the freedom to express your religious views, a freedom to share what you believe in terms of your faith. And we believe that kind of freedom must be counterbalanced by the experiences of those who might not want to be disturbed as they go to work or come back from work, as they would like to have in safe, quieter spaces for themselves. So what we are saying as a African Council of Churches, if we understand why Prasa makes that decision, it makes all of us possible to say to our communities, this is the reason, and this reason makes quite clear sense, and we believe we can support it. If it doesn't make sense, we can then find solutions with Prasa as communities that are interested in this work, to say what is it then that we should be doing together to mitigate against what Prasa perceives as a problem that originates from what people do when they preach and worship in trains.
I think, according to Prasa, Reverend, one of the things that it cited for this decision was the fact that they need to keep the train carriages clear for freedom of movement. But I wonder if the outrage that's coming from some commuters is less about the actual reasons and more about the fact that they weren't consulted.
You can say that, Michelle, indeed. But at the same time, if you want to keep the trains open and free for movement, that does not mean you need to prohibit preaching, because what you are talking about there is how people stand or sit in the train themselves. You might argue that worshiping and preaching might congregate people, but there's a way to engage people to regulate for themselves how they stand and move around in trains. You do not say people who sing together, let alone religious, people who sit there and have deep conversations, if they're congregated in a clocking manner, you are going to ban the debates and people speaking in trains. What you are saying is, if that's the reason that Prasa gives, is that we need for security and safety reasons, we need to keep our trains open for free flow of movement. That's a valid point to make. And how then do we do that so that people who do whatever they do, including preaching and worshiping in trains, they're able to do that in a manner that doesn't obstruct the movement of people? That is something that is possible to do and engage with ourselves as a community. We do have creativity to deal with these matters.
So how far are you going to take this, Reverend? Because Prasa has already implemented these changes. In fact, one of the visuals we were using earlier on for our discussion shows someone who was preaching on a train and who has been doing so for many, many years. There it is now. And in fact, she was stopped in the middle of her sermon because of these new regulations.
Our view is that Prasa, as a responsive and a responsible public institution, is one that is going to listen to people, is going to say to itself, how do we communicate better with people? How do we make sure that with people we find amicable solutions? We do not give up as the Council of Churches into dialogue. South Africa has been built on people conversing and dialoguing with one another, without arm wrestling and intimidating each other. Our view is that indeed Prasa will listen to people and engage people and help people understand. And let's take the point you're making, Michelle, that this is about safety, this is about the free movement of people, so that our people then can be engaged on that matter. And therefore, I don't think we would need to find a way to intimidate each other into understanding where we are together. And I'm sure Prasa is open in many ways to converse with people and help them understand. By the way, I just hope that we do not end up with a situation where Prasa then is going to have rules and regulations that are very difficult to enforce. Because then you are going to have many people who are going to be defying something that they believe attacks their own freedoms. My view is, and our view as a council is, that Prasa is a responsible public entity that will allow the citizens, ultimately, at the end of it all, Prasa is the servant of the people.
Reverend, this morning, as we end off our conversation, do you have a meeting as the SA Council of Churches or any kind of engagement set up with Prasa around this issue?
No, we have nothing like that that has been put on the table. We are expressing our own concerns as others have done in the public. We have not yet found any scheduled meeting moment with Prasa.
Prasa, for its part, quoted in a number of articles around this issue, saying that it's aimed at enhancing passenger safety and onboard cleanliness. This issue around banning preaching and also gambling and informal trading in these new train coaches. It's certainly a story we've got our eyes on for you. Rev Mzwandile Molo, let me thank you for your time this morning, the Deputy Secretary General with the SA Council of Churches.